What if every person you meet is already telling you who they are without saying a word? The truth is, most people don't listen with their ears. They listen with their fears, their past wounds, their unspoken desires. But a Stoic sees deeper. A Stoic watches without judgment and listens without needing noise, because to truly understand someone is not to control them, but to free yourself from being deceived. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. But in a world filled with masks and mirrors, how do you keep your soul clear? The key is perception. Not surface-level guessing, but a trained awareness of the patterns, words, silences and motives that reveal the truth behind behavior. In this video, we are not just decoding people. We are uncovering the quiet signs that speak louder than performance. And once you begin to see clearly, you stop reacting and start choosing. So pay attention. Each moment ahead holds a tactic, a lesson, and a mirror. Stay with it, and by the end, you will not only read others more clearly, you will begin to see yourself. 1. Watch how they treat the powerless. You can learn more about a person's soul by watching how they act when they think no one important is watching. Forget how they treat you in the beginning. That can be rehearsed. Politeness can be a performance. Kindness can be a strategy. But what cannot be faked is how someone treats those they believe hold no benefit for them. The man who speaks softly to his boss but rolls his eyes at the janitor has already revealed his nature. Marcus Aurelius reminded us to observe without judgment, but not without clarity. When someone ignores the one serving them, snaps at the one who made a mistake, or dismisses the quiet voice in the room, they are teaching you something precious. They are telling you what they value and what they do not. The Stoics didn't need personality tests to judge character. They paid attention to action, especially when there was nothing to gain. True strength, real honor, is quiet. It appears when a person speaks with equal regard to the powerful and the powerless. It shows in how they wait patiently, how they acknowledge others, how they refrain from condescension even when no reward follows. A Stoic doesn't act based on status. He acts based on principle. He treats the unseen as if the gods are watching, because in a way, his own soul is. Machiavelli understood the same truth from a colder angle. He observed that when people believe no one of consequence is observing, they drop the mask. They reveal their hierarchy of value, and that's when you see their real face. He knew that one day, if your value in their eyes begins to fade, they'll treat you as they once treated the invisible. So you watch carefully, you look past the performance, and you ask not what they say about respect, but who they give it to when they gain nothing from it. Because if they cannot honor someone with no advantage to offer, they will not honor you when your advantage disappears. And that's the point where your real understanding of them begins. What comes next is to observe not what they say, but how they carry themselves when the world isn't watching. 2. Let silence reveal the truth. Most people are afraid of silence, not because it's awkward, but because it forces them to face themselves. The moment words stop filling the space, their inner noise begins to surface. A Stoic knows that silence isn't emptiness. It's presence, it's weight. And when used with intention, it becomes a mirror no mask can survive. If you want to see someone's core without asking too many questions, say less. Much less. Let them fill the space. Let them reach for comfort. The one who cannot sit with stillness will reach for noise. They will offer stories not because they trust you, but because they want to distract themselves from being seen. And in that flood of words, truth escapes. They begin to reveal what they fear, what they crave, what they hide. Seneca once said that speech should be weighed, not counted. But when someone speaks too much in silence, you see what they haven't yet mastered. The man who talks without restraint often does not govern himself. He is pulled by the need to impress, to be approved, to be understood. But the man who is whole inside does not rush to explain. He does not fear the pause. He lets the stillness speak first. And when you offer no interruption, no reassurance, no rush to fill the silence, people begin to show you who they are. Watch where their voice trembles. Watch where they hesitate, overcompensate, or break their gaze. That's where the armor thins. That's where the soul tries to hide. But silence always finds the crack. So the next time you're speaking with someone and you want to understand more than what their words are saying, don't interrogate, don't interrupt, just stop. Let your stillness be louder than their speech. Let it pull the truth out gently, because what a person says when no one is forcing them to talk is often far more honest than what they say when asked. And once you've mastered how to see in silence, the next step is learning to notice the one thing people always try to hide, even from themselves. 3. Withdraw approval and observe. Most people show you only what they believe you want to see. They adjust, they perform, they charm. But if you truly want to know someone's nature, don't feed the performance. Withhold approval, withhold warmth. Give them only your presence, calm, quiet, unreadable. And watch. This is one of the simplest but clearest tests. When you stop giving, you start seeing. A person's reaction to your stillness reveals what they were really here for. If they grow cold, their warmth was a transaction. If they push harder, compliment more, lean in with effort, it means they are ruled by a hunger for validation. If they remain steady, neither offended nor overly eager, you are looking at someone who may be dangerous, not because they're bad, but because they are disciplined, detached, and not easily moved. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that detachment is not the absence of feeling, but the refusal to be controlled by it. When you stop offering something for others to feed off, you create a clear mirror. The true measure of a man is how he acts when there is nothing to gain, not just what he says, but what he becomes in the absence of reward. Machiavelli used this insight not to judge, but to predict. If a person is only kind when it benefits them, that is a warning. If they stay near you when you have no titles, no favor, no attention to give, then their presence speaks louder than their words ever could. So, the next time you're uncertain about someone's intentions, try this. Give them nothing. No laughter, no approval, no praise. Just a calm presence and your own clarity. See how they respond. Because when the mask of performance is no longer rewarded, the truth slips out. And once you've seen what they are without influence, the next step is to listen carefully, not to what they say, but to what they're trying not to say. 4. Break the script. See the person. There are people who don't speak, they perform. Their words are rehearsed. Their stories are timed. Even their moments of vulnerability are crafted not to be real, but to be effective. They've studied how others respond. And now they move through life using charm like a sword and honesty like a shield. But the Stoic doesn't read the mask. He watches for the break in the script. The way to see through these polished performances is to interrupt the flow. Gently, but deliberately. Ask a question that doesn't fit their story. Let their clever joke land in silence. Respond to their compliment without gratitude or denial. Change the subject just as they begin building emotional momentum. Why? Because performance needs rhythm. And when you break that rhythm, the illusion cracks. In that pause, in that slight hesitation, in that flash of discomfort, you see something real. You see the part of them that isn't planned. Maybe it's irritation, maybe fear, maybe a moment of truth they didn't mean to reveal, but it is theirs, and it is honest. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When you interrupt the script, the dye bleeds through the fabric. And for a brief moment, their inner world leaks out. This isn't manipulation, it's discernment. The Stoic doesn't seek to embarrass or control. He observes. He creates space for truth to rise by refusing to play along with the performance. And in doing so, he protects his peace, because he doesn't invest in who someone pretends to be, only in who they are beneath the act. And once you've seen what's hidden beneath the surface, the next step is to test what they stand on when the ground shifts. Because anyone can be loyal when the sun is shining. The real question is what they do when the weather turns. 5. Test loyalty with gentle denial. A Stoic doesn't wait for betrayal to understand someone's loyalty. He creates the condition to observe it. And the simplest way to test loyalty is not through grand sacrifice or high-stakes trials. It's by saying no, a quiet, unceremonious no. Just once, just small. Say no to a small favor. Refuse something they expected. Be less available for a short while. Offer them nothing but your continued calm. Then watch, not with judgment, with clarity. Do they remain steady, patient, respectful? Or do they begin to shift, become distant, passive, sharp, with words spoken in your absence? Seneca warned that hardship reveals character, but so does denial. A person's response to not getting what they want is far more telling than how they act when they're indulged. If they begin to criticize you, gossip, withhold warmth, or seek someone else to give them what they were denied, then you have your answer. A man who only offers loyalty when it's easy, when he is praised, favored, or given access, is not loyal. He is opportunistic. And when your value fades, so will he. But the one who stays grounded when you have nothing to offer is the one whose loyalty is built on principle, not gain. This tactic isn't cruel, it's necessary. We test materials before we build on them. We inspect foundations before raising a home. Should we not do the same with people who walk beside us? Loyalty is not a word, it's not a promise, it's a pattern, and it is revealed most clearly when someone is faced with rejection, disappointment, or lack. So, when in doubt, deny gently. Observe quietly. And remember, the smallest no often reveals the largest truth. And once you understand how someone handles denial, the next truth to uncover is how they respond to rejection. Not just from you, but from the world. That is where the deepest motives are buried. 6. Track where their attention goes. Words are cheap. They can be learned, rehearsed, and weaponized. But attention, that cannot be faked. Where a person's eyes rest, what they notice, who they acknowledge and who they ignore, those are the real signs. Because attention is an investment, and what someone invests in shows you what they value. So next time you're in a room with someone, don't just listen, watch. When others are speaking, do they glance constantly toward the person in power? Do they brighten up only when someone influential walks by? Then you are looking at someone who does not serve principle. They serve advantage. If they dismiss the quiet, ignore the ones with no voice or status, you're seeing the soul of a man who respects only usefulness. And what about when they speak with you? If their eyes flick down to their phone mid-conversation, you are not a person in their world. You are a pause in it. If they mirror your tone and gestures a little too perfectly, they're not connecting, they're calculating. True attention is steady, it lingers, it does not scatter when something more tempting enters the frame. Machiavelli understood this well. He did not waste time decoding words. He watched what people gave their focus to. A man who says he values justice but fawns over tyrants. His gaze betrays his allegiance. A friend who claims to care but never notices your absence. Their attention has already left the room. As Marcus Aurelius once reminded us, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, and thoughts follow attention. So if you want to know someone's true beliefs, don't ask them. Watch them. Watch what they return to when nothing is pulling them. Watch what pulls them when something better arrives. If you've ever noticed someone's attention reveal more than their words, comment with "I've seen it" below. 7. Reveal a fake flaw. Watch the response. There's a quiet test that tells you more about a person's heart than any conversation, and it begins with an illusion. You tell them something that sounds like a flaw, something small, something believable, but not something true. "I overthink things sometimes," or "I'm not great at confrontation," or "I used to trust people too quickly." Then you wait. That's all. Just wait. Some people will do nothing. They'll hear it, nod politely, and carry on. That means either respect or caution. Either way, they've chosen restraint over reaction. Some will take that tiny admission and return the favor. They'll share something of their own, something real. That is a signal of trust, or, at the very least, a desire for it. But others, and this is where the test matters, will take that supposed weakness and store it for later. You'll hear it again when you least expect it, turned into a joke, a jab, or a quiet judgment. Why does this matter? Because how someone handles perceived weakness tells you how they'll handle you when you're vulnerable. And every man, no matter how strong, has a moment of weakness. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And mastery includes knowing who you can let near your more fragile parts. By offering a fictional weakness, you are revealing nothing of value about yourself, but you are learning something of immense value about them. Do they protect what sounds like a wound, or do they reach for it as a weapon? This tactic is not deceit, it is wisdom. The same way you test a bridge before trusting it with your weight, you test people before trusting them with your truth. If they fail such a simple test, imagine how they'll act when the stakes are real. So try this. In a calm moment, offer a false flaw. Then watch, not just what they say, but what they remember, how they store it, and how they use it. If they throw it back at you later, even as a joke, you've already seen enough. If this part of the test surprised you, comment "Noted" below, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to keep sharpening your inner perception, because up next is perhaps the clearest test of all. Not how they respond to your words, but how they define themselves when no one asks them to. 8. Make them wait. Let time speak. There is no clearer window into someone's character than how they behave when things don't move on their schedule. We live in a world addicted to speed, fast replies, instant attention, immediate validation. But the Stoic isn't rushed. He watches. He lets the clock speak. When you delay your reply to a message, when you're vague about a meeting, when you take a little longer than expected to return something someone wants, you're not playing a game. You're inviting the truth to surface. The man who believes he's owed your time will show his expectation. He'll prod. He'll guilt. He'll turn cold, or worse, try to manipulate with silence of his own. But the one who remains calm, the one who adapts without complaint, the one who doesn't shrink or swell when plans change, that is a man who has learned to wait without losing himself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it? And nothing provokes anger in the impatient like being made to wait." Machiavelli studied this not just for loyalty, but for depth. The surface can lie, but time uncovers what urgency conceals. The person who cannot endure delay will not endure hardship, and the one who fractures under slow disappointment will collapse when pressure truly builds. This is why you make them wait, not to punish, to observe. Time is a tool. Delay is a chisel. It chips away performance and reveals structure. So, if you truly want to understand someone, don't give them what they want too soon. Let the silence stretch, let the gap widen, and watch who stays composed. Because once you've seen how they handle time, you're ready to watch something even deeper. You're ready to observe who they're becoming, simply by who they imitate. 9. Study who they imitate. No one is fully original, and that's not a weakness, it's a truth. Every person is shaped by what they admire, what they follow, what they borrow without realizing it. The Stoics taught us to choose our influences with care, because who you follow becomes who you are. Watch closely, and you'll notice it. The way someone adopts a certain tone when around strength. The way they mimic the clothing, the posture, the vocabulary of someone they secretly place above themselves. This is not coincidence, it is self-reveal. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, and those thoughts often come from the people we shadow." Machiavelli didn't ask people who their heroes were. He watched them move. He listened to who they quoted. He paid attention to who they tried to impress and whose footsteps they followed. Because imitation is confession. It tells you what someone longs for. When a man copies the powerful, you know he craves dominion. When he mimics the famous, he's not searching for meaning, he's chasing applause. When he mirrors the disciplined and the moral, he wants virtue, not always to practice it, but to be seen practicing it. The one who imitates the wise may not yet be wise himself, but he's reaching towards something higher. And that's a sign worth noting. Even small details reveal much. Does she change her laugh in different company? Does he adopt opinions based on who's listening? Do they drop names, quotes, or gestures that aren't their own? These aren't harmless habits. They are indicators of who they serve inside, the invisible authority they have allowed to shape their identity. And in truth, we all serve someone. But the question is, do they serve what uplifts them or what flatters them? Do they borrow from people of substance or from those who merely shine? If you observe someone long enough, you'll see the outline of their idol. You'll see what they value, what they chase, and what they hope to become, not by asking, just by noticing. And once you've seen who they mirror, the final test becomes clear. When pressure is applied, when denial enters, and when masks drop, what identity remains? That is where we go next. 10. Trigger envy. Watch for the flicker. Some truths don't announce themselves. They flicker, quick, fragile, unguarded, and nothing causes a flicker like envy. Most people won't admit it. They'll dress it up as indifference, concern, even support, but you can feel its tension if you're still enough to see it. The test is simple. Say something small that raises your status without sounding proud. Mention a recent success, a compliment received, a new opportunity that came to you unexpectedly. Then pause. Let silence do the work. Look at the face, not the smile, the eyes, the corners of the mouth, the sudden shift in posture. Does their smile tighten too quickly? Do they instantly steer the conversation away? Do they minimize your win by comparing it to someone else's or offering an unsolicited caution? That's envy. Marcus Aurelius taught us to be indifferent to praise and criticism, not because they don't matter, but because they reveal more about the speaker than about us. And envy is the most dangerous of these reactions. Machiavelli understood this better than most. He feared not the man who opposed him directly, but the one who smiled too quickly at good news, who showed quiet discomfort at his success. Because envy doesn't declare war, it prepares quietly. It smiles in the daylight and sharpens its resentment in the dark. The Stoic doesn't react. He registers. He knows that envy is not an insult. It's an admission that someone feels small in your presence, even when you did nothing to provoke it. But envy is not harmless. It is the root of betrayal, the seed of slander, the quiet erosion of goodwill. So observe closely, not out of suspicion, but out of discipline. The moment you see that flicker, the twitch of discomfort behind the mask, you are not meant to fight it. You are meant to remember it. Because the man who cannot celebrate your rise will never protect your peace. And once you've seen how someone responds to your light, ask yourself what kind of darkness they are still hiding from. Often, the easiest way to discover that is through what they claim to despise. 11. Ask what they hate, hear what they hide. People are careful when they speak about what they love. They know how to shape admiration into something admirable, but ask them what they hate, and their guard lowers. Something sharper comes out, less rehearsed, more instinctive, and that's where the Stoic listens most closely. Ask a person calmly, what kind of people do you find hard to respect? Or what behavior truly bothers you? Don't react to their answer. Just let it unfold, because what someone hates often reveals more about what they fear in themselves than what they claim to see in others. A man who says he hates arrogance may, in truth, be hiding his own hunger for recognition. The one who lashes out against liars may be quietly bending truth in his own life, and those who cannot tolerate weakness are often terrified of being seen as vulnerable. Seneca reminded us that we are often most offended by what we have not yet conquered in ourselves. Judgment, when spoken without reflection, becomes a mirror. This tactic is not meant to trap, it's meant to reveal. You're not accusing them of anything, you're simply listening to the tone, to the speed of their speech, to the way their voice rises when they speak about a certain type of person. Because when people speak in absolutes, I can't stand people who, they are often describing the very traits they fear being associated with. Machiavelli didn't waste time arguing with such people. He simply noted it. What they hated, he mapped as a threat. Not to the world, to themselves. Because the thing a man condemns most often is the trait he is still wrestling with internally. A Stoic doesn't mock this. He respects the signal. He knows that everyone has shadows, and those who yell loudest about the dark are often closest to it. So when someone tells you what disgusts them, you don't need to agree or disagree. You simply pay attention. In their rejection, you hear their confession, and what you do with that knowledge, quietly, firmly, without letting it own you, is the mark of inner discipline. And once you've seen the shadow behind their judgment, the final layer begins, reading not just who they imitate or what they hate, but what their gaze flees from when the truth gets too close. 12. Notice what breaks their gaze. The eyes don't lie, not because they always tell the truth, but because they cannot help but react to it. Direct eye contact is one of the most subtle expressions of inner steadiness. It holds presence. But more revealing than eye contact itself is what breaks it. Speak calmly and introduce certain topics: money, shame, pride, failure, loss, power, and then pause. Watch closely. Not just their words, but their gaze. Does it shift downward at the mention of past weakness? Does it dart sideways when status is discussed? Do they smile, but their eyes flinch? The eyes don't ask permission. They respond the moment the inner world gets exposed. Machiavelli understood this far beyond surface charm. He knew the eyes are not merely windows to the soul, they're the first to flee when discomfort arrives. The mind might spin explanations, but the eyes reveal what's been buried. What causes someone to look away reveals what still holds power over them. A Stoic doesn't chase answers. He invites them to arrive on their own. This tactic isn't confrontation, it's observation. When someone's eyes shift unexpectedly, that's not a random movement. It's a retreat, a quiet signal that something in your words touched a pressure point. And once you've seen what their gaze avoids, you're ready for a different kind of insight, one where you stop watching them and start shaping what they see in you. 13. Become their uncomfortable mirror. Every person wears a mask, some for protection, some for approval, some out of habit. But the surest way to make that mask slip is not to pull it off, but to reflect it, slowly, silently, stoically. Machiavelli didn't force people to reveal themselves. He made himself the mirror that showed them who they were. By subtly matching their tone, posture, or pacing, without imitation or mockery, you return their energy to them. And most people cannot hold that reflection without reacting. Mirror their calm and see if they rush to fill the silence. Mirror their charm and notice if they shift toward dominance. Mirror their vulnerability and watch whether they offer real openness or turn mocking. The moment someone sees themselves in you, their instincts take over. That's when the act becomes unstable. The Stoic reads energy, not performance, and energy always reveals more when returned than when absorbed. When someone is grounded in truth, seeing themselves echoed won't disturb them. But when they are hiding, pretending, calculating, then your calm reflection unsettles them, not because it threatens them, but because it unmasks them. This is why becoming the mirror is so powerful. It doesn't provoke defensiveness through argument. It provokes revelation through alignment. It doesn't accuse, it reflects. And those who react strongly to their own image are often the ones most disconnected from it. Use this tactic sparingly and with purpose. A mirror is only useful when polished, and the Stoic doesn't reflect chaos. He reflects intention. And what you reflect in this moment prepares the ground for the final insight, the one that reveals the system they run on beneath all appearances. 14. Disarm with respect, cut with clarity. Most people brace for judgment. It's how they enter conversations, guarded, prepared with excuses, answers rehearsed, and a mask carefully adjusted. But the Stoic doesn't meet resistance with force. He meets it with unexpected grace. Machiavelli, in his cold brilliance, understood this better than most. He began not with confrontation, but with praise, and in that he found the opening others missed. Start with sincere respect. Acknowledge something thoughtful they've said. Compliment their ability to reason. Mention a strength they rarely hear noticed. Even if the moment feels small, that gesture disarms. When people feel seen without being attacked, their armor loosens. And that's when you ask the question they didn't see coming. The one that steps past their story and touches something raw. You might say, "You seem incredibly composed. When did you learn to wear that calm like a shield?" Or, "You clearly think through every move. What fear shaped that habit?" These aren't accusations. They're precise observations. And because they follow respect, they land deeply. A person will reveal far more when they feel admired than when they feel challenged. Respect becomes the key, but clarity is the blade. The Stoic studies people not for amusement, but for protection, not to judge their personality, but to understand their patterns. Once you see what someone hides, fear of being left, need for approval, obsession with control, you no longer move through guesswork. You move with intent. If someone fears being forgotten, distance becomes your tool. If they chase praise, silence becomes your mirror. If they need to dominate, unpredictability becomes your advantage. And if they conceal harm behind politeness, then you already know how to protect your peace or where to press if needed. Reading others isn't about dominance, it's about discernment. And when respect opens the door, observation walks through it without being noticed. Because now you're no longer reacting to what they show, you're choosing how to use what they never meant for you to see. Read archetypes, but name no one. The Stoic watches quietly and acts with precision. He does not slap names on people. He reads them, observes their patterns, and chooses his response. Machiavelli followed the same path, not because he lacked judgment, but because he understood something deeper. Labels create resistance. Say someone is manipulative, and they'll argue, but see it, adapt, and never name it, and they will never know they've been seen. You don't need to say, he seeks approval. Just notice how praise guides his behavior. You don't need to call someone power-hungry. Just watch how they scan every room for advantage. These aren't insults, they're frameworks, archetypes of behavior that let you move through the world with eyes open. Some people are masked pleasers, eager for validation, but volatile when denied. Others are silent climbers. They appear loyal, but study power gaps for the moment to rise. There are fragile minds wrapped in brilliance, useful but unstable if not carefully balanced. And some are loud defenders, always explaining, always correcting, always hiding something behind the noise. You never confront these roles, you simply adjust. Watch how they respond to hearing no. That's the clearest Stoic measure. Deny them a small expectation, a favor, a compliment, your time, and step back. The grounded will remain centered. The untrained will shift, react, reveal. Because real character is not shown when people get their way. It's shown when their will is quietly denied. Now listen more closely. People don't just act. They position. Every word spoken in your presence has an aim, even if they don't realize it. So ask yourself, who are they performing for? You, a group, someone not in the room. Watch their glances, their jokes, their tone. Once you know who they want to impress, you know who owns their loyalty, and it may not be you. When someone boasts a single trait loudly, I'm brutally honest, I avoid drama, I always put others first, start looking behind the curtain. The truth is usually the opposite. Real strength doesn't need to announce itself. It walks quietly. And the more someone highlights one virtue, the more likely it's a shield hiding what they fear others might see. Once you've read their patterns, their loyalties, and their contradictions, the final choice is yours. Do you meet the mask, or do you move the person behind it? Because from this point forward, you're not just reading others, you're steering the conversation they believe they started. The real mastery begins not when you read others, but when you read yourself through them. See too much, and you risk forgetting compassion. Influence too easily, and you risk losing your soul. The wise know when to observe, when to act, and when to walk away. If this spoke to something in you, comment "Clear Vision" below and subscribe to keep sharpening your perception. You're just getting started. The next insight may change how you see everything.